So there's 34 different strengths that someone could have. I will say, as a group of 4 people sitting around this table, we accounted for 15 of those 34 strengths. So there were a lot of unique ones in between each of our results. I will tell you that Matt Cook, and I think we're beginning to see a little bit of a trend, right? Like with the commander personality type, your Enneagram, you had the most unique strengths out of any of us. Like he
looks so happy over there. He's unique. Look at him. I think he's
sorry. There were 4 out of your 5 strengths that none of the rest of us had. And then the rest of us, we only had like 2 unique ones, and the rest of them were shared among other people. So that doesn't necessarily matter for what we're doing here. But if the 4 of us were a team that I was managing, I would want to know who shares what strengths if I was going to put them together, like on a project or a committee.
Would you fire Matt Cook?
Absolutely not.
No,
I would take his job and become the coach.
He would be his first hire.
I would. Yeah, Matt would. I would give him the most impossible task, knowing his personality won't let him quit it.
And then I'd burn out and quit anyway.
That's it.
Yeah.
Or did you see one of these said, "I'm more likely to have a heart attack or a stroke."
Oh, no,
I
did
didn't
it say
see
that?
Yes,
That's awful.
That may have been the last one. Maybe
Why would they put that in a report?
Maybe to warn me. Chill out, man.
Yeah.
Now I need to go back and read all of mine.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt Barker, you want to talk through your strengths?
Yeah, first off, I was thinking about, you were talking about you use this for new hires. I could really see this one in particular being a great one to use because you, like you mentioned, you're not always going to be talented in certain areas. So knowing what you kind of default to as far as what your strengths are, that's important to make sure you have a well-rounded team. So if you know that someone is an organized person, that's what they default to, you need someone that's going to pick up the slack on some of the other areas. So I could definitely see this being for hiring new employees and maybe learning a little bit about them. I think that's good. I got for the Clifton strengths, harmony, I guess was the top one. I also had discipline, achiever, responsibility, and consistency. I don't know if there's one that kind of trumps the others on this, but harmony was the first one that was mentioned there.
So that is your top one then. They give you the 5 in order. And again, it's one of those, we could have paid for the full report and it would have listed all 34 in descending order, but really the 5 are the ones that you should, according to their own philosophy, those are the 5 you should focus on.
Okay, so harmony in Clifton's strengths, harmony is a relationship building theme focused on finding common ground and minimizing conflict. Individuals with strong harmony talents seek areas of agreement, strive for consensus, and prefer to avoid conflict. Naturally attuned to detecting potential friction and aim to smooth out disagreements, making them effective at building unity and collaboration. I think that's true because I'm always, when I do a conflict style inventory, I'm always a turtle, so I just avoid conflict. So that describes me. I'd rather have everybody getting along than there being a lot of disagreements and friction. It stresses me out when I just feel like everybody's just bickering and arguing. I would say that would be one of the things I try to do, and I teach a small group communication class, and one of the things I try to do is not put too many. We do a similar assessment where we have people do personality assessments. How do you approach conflict? And I try to separate certain people so there's not just constant bickering in groups. So I even see it in just college students as well. Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate. Well, before we get into that though, I'm curious to see what Jared gets because I feel like Jared doesn't mind a little bit of conflict, and I just get very uncomfortable with it. So
I don't like conflict, especially serious conflict. If it's fun arguments like a leadership draft, I do like that kind of stuff. Like I think what we've learned from my last 2 personality results so far is that I like to think through things and argue things. And especially if there is an end result of proving someone else wrong, then I like that a lot. Before I say mine, Matt Barker, I think with harmony, what we've learned so far with like your Enneagram and the advocate personality type, it's like, that kind of checks out. And I do like that we're seeing some similarity. My 5 strengths are learner, intellection, achiever, strategic, and developer. So developer is taking a project or an individual and wanting to invest in them in a way that develops them more fully. Strategic, I think we all kind of know what that is. Achiever is, the way I really describe that is having like a to-do list that you can check things off of and just getting a sense of accomplishment from, I marked something out, which is, that's definite. And then intellection and learner. Intellection is more of, you want things that kind of stimulate your mind, that give you things to focus on. But learner is just really taking in new information. You're always looking for something, a new theory, something new that you haven't heard before. And that one I do feel like accurately describes me. I do like to read and research and do all of those things that may be considered tedious, but I like knowing about that kind of stuff from a variety of disciplines. It doesn't necessarily have to be just something I'm interested in. So I do feel like those describe me, and I've always felt like they do sort of align with my Myers-Briggs, my Enneagram or whatever. I will say I took the Clifton Strengths survey years back and had the same 5 strengths sort of, I guess, for 15 years. And I retook it before this one just to see. And 3 of my strengths were still the same. 2 had switched off. But thinking back when I looked at that and thinking back on what role was I in at the time and what role am I in now with work and family and church and all these things, it made sense how some of those had shifted. I used to not have the strength of achiever, but I also used to not have as big a to-do list or have as many things that I felt like I needed to get done. And so seeing that change, but also there's some similarities there. Let's go to Matt Cook.
Okay. I actually did this about 6 years ago, so I didn't redo it.
Okay.
But I am, number 1, activator, communication, number 2, 3, command, 4, competition, 5, strategic. So command, competition, strategic fit with what we've said before, activator and communication. So the activator, this is interesting. They like to make things happen by turning thoughts into action, like to get it done, let's take action. And then I like the communication piece with that. Find it easy to put their thoughts into words and are good conversationalists and presenters. So this fits with what I do every day.
Right.
Like I
Preaching,
like to,
for
I like
sure.
to motivate people
Preaching and teaching.
Yep.
to take action. And so I don't know, I'd forgotten about this. So we did this. My dean had us do this 6 years ago. So yeah, this is pretty cool. And probably some areas to learn and grow in.
Nice.
I had empathy, responsibility, developer, consistency, and relator. Empathy, I think, is pretty straightforward, and thinking about my job. Was it this one or the Myers-Briggs that literally was like, you should be a counselor? That was the Myers-Briggs.
I think it was the
first one,
Myers-Briggs. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, empathy was at the top of the list. Responsibility. I take psychological ownership of what I say and do. I'm committed to stable values such as honesty and loyalty. Developer, we already talked about that one a little bit. Consistency, I think, is pretty straightforward. And relator, you enjoy close relationships with others. You find deep satisfaction in working hard with friends to achieve a goal. I think that definitely fits. There was another one that you guys talked about, the achiever, I think would probably be my number 6 if I had to guess, but it was not in my top 5 in this list.
It's been interesting. I've been tracking the results of this with our incoming student classes as they've been going through this first year course. And so the consistency with which they fall into different dimensions of strengths over the last 5 years is pretty shocking. How similar they are sort of throughout a cohort of 300-400 students. And more, the young people that we have coming into a university have strengths like belief, communication, empathy, these types of, maybe you'd call them sort of transcendent kind of strengths. They're a little more value driven, and less they have strengths that maybe you would consider traditionally required for success in being a student, like discipline, responsibility.
Yep.
Those tend to be not necessarily at the bottom of their list because we're not seeing their full list, just the least reported in their top 5. And so students are coming in with more of the values that we work in Christian education. I think we would want those values, belief and empathy and harmony and all these things, but less and less the values that maybe a teacher would want from a student in the classroom.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. That's been an interesting trend that I've just been watching just out of curiosity. Learner.
And it's interesting to me as a teacher too. Matt can probably speak to this a little bit. It's very noticeable if a student is very perfectionistic, detail-oriented. Maybe they're the student that gets the syllabus out at the beginning of the semester and starts marking down the dates. You notice them more because there's not as many of them. And there's more that are more just kind of spontaneous. Yeah, we'll get it done when we get it done. A lot of students consider themselves procrastinators, which is not necessarily the role of like a perfectionist would be. So for me, I have, say, a class of 30 students. There might be 4 or 5 that are kind of what I consider, oh, that's a good student. They're really trying to get stuff done on time. And then maybe 25 of the 30 are just like, we'll get it done. I appreciate that we need to do this, but I'm not going to really take, as much effort at the forefront to get it done. Is that, Matt, is that kind of what you see in your Bible classes too?
Yeah, sometimes the students who are most worried about their grade and about the assignments, they'll come up to me really anxious, and I'll say, listen, the very fact that you're coming up to me means that you're probably going to be fine, right? You are, the fact that you're worried about this differentiates you from everybody else in the class. So stop worrying. The fact that you're worried means that you're probably going to be fine. It's the 25 kids who aren't worried about it. They're like, whatever. And they're the ones who ought to be worried about their grades.
Yeah, I'm wondering too how a teacher is supposed to adjust to that when you have so many different talents, strengths, personality types, and that they're not necessarily a bad student. They just maybe do things differently than you do. How do you approach that? That's a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, again, none of this is good or bad. Right, it's just different. And the interesting thing is, I think it's not unique to the students that we see. We're talking about some generational characteristics, because there are studies out there of other schools doing research with this assessment. There was a school, an agriculture school in another state, who their students were reporting the same characteristics that our students at a private Christian school in Tennessee were reporting as their top strengths. And so there are some generational trends influenced by, whatever, culture, politics, all that stuff, that are leading students to have different strengths. And I think we're just now having some of the tools to kind of assess that and really understand some segments of the population. That's a bigger thing than just our podcast could maybe dive into. Let's touch on the communication styles real quick, and then I'll wrap us up. So the communication profile, this one is the one I use the most frequently, whether it's with students, whether it's with faculty and staff. We actually did a professional development session on campus based on this, because I think this is the most immediately impactful. Like, once you know this, you can change some things that same day. And really, the idea here is that there are a list of words. You indicate which of those best describe you, and then they are all segmented off into a different communication style. And so you see which one is the one that best aligns with you. Now, this is the one that I did predict each of yours, and I will say I got them all right, except for a little wrench that Matt Barker threw into the mix. The different styles, Brown style is more direct communication. So it's very much a yes, no, we don't need to talk about this further. Let's move on. Next thing. It's just very direct. Blue is a very emotive communication style. It's communication, but you're also checking, not only have I communicated the information to you, but how do you feel about it?
Yeah.
Right. And just kind of what's your reaction to that? Red tends to be more of a dynamic communication style. This would be a lot of, like, if you're selling something or you're hyping something up, that tends to be more the communication style. You are getting someone to buy in to the information you are giving them. And then green tends to be detailed communication style. So it's okay, here's the information, and here's the time and the date and what you need to bring, and just here's everything about, I've now told you every piece of information I know about what I'm communicating.
So green and brown would drive each other crazy then.
So each of these has the tendency to drive one another crazy, right? Brown and blue may drive each other the most crazy, because brown is...
I'm a blue, Matt.
Yes.
Well, apparently I am
Here
too.
I am picking at you the whole episode.
So brown is, hey...
Are you okay? That's the style. Are you all right?
Who cares?
Right.
Yeah.
So brown tends to be more of I've made the decision, why are we still talking? Whereas somebody who has a blue communication style wants to talk through it and keep talking through it to make sure that you do feel good about it. Or, if you don't feel good, well, now we need to talk through that piece.
Yeah.
Right. Or, like you said, a green person may be like, here's all the details that someone communicating in a brown style does not care about. We don't need to know the details. Why aren't we moving on this already. So let's do this. Let's just go around. Everybody say what their communication style is, and then we'll kind of break those down. Matt
All right.
Cook, you go first.
So I am a brown with a heavy dose of red, which is interesting. So direct, but so 19 brown, 16 red. So I think let's be direct, but I also want to convince you, so I can be flamboyant, dramatic, and energetic about trying to convince you of this direct thing I want you to buy into.
All right, Nathan.
Yeah, I'm a blue, which I think Jared was describing that as like, let's talk through it, make sure everything's okay. I care about how you feel about what I'm saying.
Counselor?
Yeah, I mean, tracks.
Yeah. All right, and then you were a mixture of which three?
Green, brown, and blue, very low on red.
Okay, so when I wrote these down, Matt Barker, I actually wrote down for you that I thought you would end up with blue.
Okay.
But the fact that you had blue, green, and brown does make sense to me in a lot of ways because your job is to teach communication, which means you are having to communicate in a lot of different ways while teaching students to communicate ideally in a lot of different ways. So there are times as a teacher that I'm sure you're giving them very specific details. There are times that maybe they're asking a lot of follow-up questions that don't matter, and it's time to just move on with the material. And then there are times where you probably want to check and just see how they're doing.
Yeah.
So that does make sense. Nathan, I had written down blue. I mean, we referenced it. Counselor, just kind of, that's what he does, right? Is talking to people and checking on how they're doing.
Yeah.
Brown, I didn't know for Matt Cook, the red communication style, but that actually makes I would expect that maybe somebody who is preaching would be trying to engage you and draw in your attention and communicate the urgency and the immediacy and the importance of this information, right?
Yep.
Not in a salesy kind of way, but also not necessarily without that.
There's a persuasive side to it.
Absolutely.
You know, it's funny. Do you remember a couple weeks ago when we were doing this and I said, "What, shouldn't these just be like 20 minutes? Like, why?
Yeah.
Right?
40, that's too long." And like, does that not track with Brown? I don't listen to podcasts because I don't have the patience to listen to podcasts. And here we are, like.
Well, and knowing now, like, you know, your Myers-Briggs and Enneagram leaning and all that makes a lot of sense. Like, based on those, that's what I was using to kind of predict that. And then mine is the details, like, given what I do for my job, but also just I like to know all the details. I don't want to be surprised by stuff. And so I tend to be kind of that detailed communicator.
I'm curious with yours, Jared. What did you get on red?
So red is my lowest by far. I have maybe like 3 or 4 words that are in that red category that I feel like apply to me. Now, here's the thing. I started in admissions, right? And to
Very
be in
much
admissions,
sales kind of.
You have to like be up in front of people and be engaging and, you know, sort of hyping them up at a youth rally or a college fair or whatever. And I can do that. Any one of us could get to that communication style or any of the communication styles that aren't their primary ones. You can get there, but it is draining. It feels, I would assume.
It's energizing for me.
But what about like a blue communication style? Like to sit down.
Oh, and have to lay out the details.
Yes, the details and the feelings and all of that.
All the feelings.
Are you okay with what I'm
with
saying?
either green or blue, like to talk through all the feelings and all the details.
If there's a purpose,
on things.
if the purpose is to motivate, yes. If the purpose is just to talk about feelings, it's like,
right.
No, it's to make sure we're okay.
The challenge with mine is
Yes.
I'm not a red, right?
Right.
But I see the benefit of being a red, preaching, even teaching.
Sure.
But for me, it does not come across as real when I try to do that. So for me, being this like out there, flamboyant, whatever, it comes across to me when I'm doing it as fake. So I'd rather be real when I'm teaching than to try to act like. But I could see where students I would come across as boring because maybe I'm not as engaging with the material as I need to be. So it's kind of like this tricky, like, I don't want to come across as fake, but I also don't want to be boring and them not to learn something because it's just coming across as very blah.
It's balancing what's needed with also authenticity.
yeah.
Right.
The opposite may be true for me. I'm not usually going to be boring in the classroom, but I'll occasionally, probably it's the case that sometimes I'm not as come across as not very compassionate,
Yeah.
or caring. Which anyway, that's
It all tells us stuff that we could work on, but also things that's a strength as well. So I think it's good.
So to kind of maybe tie a bow on this, what I did was I took everybody's results and put them in online to just say like, hey, if I was managing an individual that had this Myers-Briggs, this Enneagram, these Clifton strengths, and this communication style, what is the most effective way to manage them, right? So I'm going to read these off for each of you, and I'm curious if this is accurate. I haven't done this before with anybody.
Is this ChatGPT?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is generative AI for sure. I haven't done it this way before. Usually, once I know a communication style, if I know that on my team I have people who are blue communicators, then I know as the leader of that team, I need to spend additional time just checking in on them and seeing how they're doing. If I have somebody who is a brown communicator, they're going to see it as a waste of their time for me to go by their office every day and be like, hey, how's it going? How'd you do with that?
really
How'd you feel
interesting.
about it? And so I just need to go by and say, hey, you good for today? Yes? Awesome. I'll see you in a bit, right? If I don't have any green communicators, it does me no good necessarily. I mean, some good, but to like lay out, okay, let's go through every row of our action plan. That only matters to me. I'm the only one that needs to turn that in. They, just need to do their job. They don't necessarily care like, well, how many different assessments are you doing in the semester and what are you They don't need to know. If I have a lot of people who are red communicators, I have to go in with energy, at least for part of the day. And just kind of, yeah, that's awesome. I'm so excited that you did that, right? And share in that excitement with them. If I don't do that, it comes across like I don't care. Or if they're a blue communicator and I come in brown communicating, right? Just yes, no. Then it comes across as I'm
Is he
mad
upset with me?
right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like once I know that, I can change something
Why
the
are his
same day.
arms crossed right now?
Yeah. He's in a mood. For myself, when I put in, here's somebody who is an INTJ, an architect, Enneagram 5 with these strengths and a detailed communicator, here's how that person should be managed. It says provide autonomy and space to think, offer access to resources for research and learning, give clear objectives and logical reasoning behind the decisions. Man, that does matter a ton to me. Knowing like a reason for a decision and not just here's a decision.
Doing it just to do it, yeah.
Avoid micromanagement and trust their strategic thinking. Recognize achievements privately and thoughtfully. That is insightful, actually. Just a meaningful, I appreciate you for this. It doesn't have to be in front of people, but just, hey, I appreciate this, and now I'm left to move on to my next thing. Man, it's pretty spot on. Okay, ENTJ with an Enneagram of 8. So a commander with an Enneagram of 8.
Matt Cook.
Brown communication style. Give autonomy and authority to make decisions. So this is if somebody was managing you, right? Somebody above you. Give autonomy and authority to make decisions. Offer challenging goals and opportunities to prove capability. Be direct, straightforward, and honest. Recognize and reward wins, but also challenge continued growth. Respect their need for control and influence. What is your reaction to that?
He's nodding.
If somebody was managing you.
I
arms
think
aren't
about my
crossed.
current boss, and he is what you just described by personality, direct.
Right.
And I love him as a boss because he's direct and gives me space. And then, but also I don't know if this is in there, but I appreciate a supervisor, and I know this is different depending on who it is, that I can be direct in return to. I can be like, well, that's dumb, and that's my boss right now.
Absolutely.
And it works great for me.
All right, an advocate with an Enneagram of 3.
This is me,
This is
Nathan.
Nathan. With your specific strengths, offer encouragement and recognition for achievements and effort. Provide clear expectations while respecting independence. Give honest but compassionate feedback. Avoid micromanagement, show interest in their emotional well-being, and align work with purpose-driven initiatives.
Yeah, that fits.
All right.
I got TJ as a boss, so
ChatGPT is on it today.
And then Matt Barker, advocate with an Enneagram of 1. Provide clear, structured expectations with defined goals. Recognize high standards and dedication while encouraging balance. Offer feedback with tact, focusing on solutions. Respect their desire for fairness and organization. Support efforts with reliable systems and consistent values.
Yeah, I think it's accurate. I sound kind of boring, though. Like,
No, I don't think you sound.
I think I
You
do.
sound boring. Listen, I mean,
and I think it's accurate because we have certain values we have to with here at Freed Hardeman, but teachers have a little flexibility on how they teach. So we all have different ways of doing things, and my boss isn't necessarily going to say, hey, you have to teach it this way. So I have a little bit of flexibility there where I can kind of teach things the way, you know, as long as it's adhering to the values of the university. I can teach different classes the way that I choose to. So there's nobody dictating that to me, I guess.
But I think what you said is actually really important right there. Academic freedom within a broader system, right? Not just full open-ended, no systems guiding, you know, parameters for attendance or, you know, a calendar and all those kinds of things. So the point of all this, I think we're at the end here. These things can matter if they're used correctly. These things can also be easily dismissed as just broad labels that get thrown on people, and really individuals can use these as labels to either justify like bad behavior or to try to, you know, well, that's not my strength, that's not in my personality, so I can't do that. These things are good starting points for conversations about how to best utilize individuals, how to best make them feel valued, how to help them to find their own motivations. So from a leadership standpoint, fun little argument of why to use these and how to use these.
This is a good episode.
Yeah, it's fun.
I liked it. I mean, and I actually did learn a little bit about myself and apparently about Matt Cook. I know a lot about him now. So this is
and
interesting.
you know what's funny is one of the descriptions I was reading as we were doing this says that like whatever I am, which we don't like sharing our feelings with authenticity. And I feel like everybody knows about me now, and it makes me a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, I really wish you had told me thank you off.
Yeah, I know. I wondered if you picked up on what I was doing.
I was thinking about this too.
We're the counselor.
Yeah, we're different in a lot of ways. We might actually make a pretty good team because like we all have different things maybe we could bring to the table.
Should do a podcast.
Maybe so. We have different perspectives. So thanks for joining us today on Navigating the Four. We hope today's conversation sparked something real in your faith, your healing, your leadership, or your communication. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with a friend, and leave us a review. Until next time, keep showing up, keep growing, and keep navigating the four. And we'll see you next time on Navigating the Four podcast.